Chapter 332 Snowstorm 4. Coincidentally, Tian Zhuang and his sister had also cleared the path to their entrance. Of course, it was only a path. Each household diligently dug out the necessary paths in their courtyards. The next day, everyone spontaneously began to clear the middle of the street. Because everyone had difficulties, digging a path to the middle of their village would allow everyone to help each other. Of course, Zhou and Gu Qingrui did not cheat this time. They followed the lead and dug. In the afternoon, they finally dug a path to the middle of the street that could fit 2 people. The villagers found 3 collapsed houses. Fortunately, no one died, but 3 villagers were injured. Therefore, Gu Qingrui and his wife stopped clearing the road and instead began to treat the injured. At night, the village chief called the village's main elders to his house and asked, "So what are your thoughts? It will be bad if we keep the snow inside the village. Father, my suggestion is to push the snow in the village into the river as much as possible. When it melts, it won't affect the village." Qian Jiaxi spoke at this moment. Jiaxi is right. Although this work is tiring, it has to be done. Otherwise, it will be troublesome once the snow melts. I'm afraid it will snow again, and it will be troublesome to clear then. We have to be quick. The patriarch nodded in agreement. Yes, let's do as Jiaxi said. Everyone except the elderly and children will join in and clear the snow as soon as possible. Seeing that everyone agreed, the village chief nodded and continued, "It's decided. Tomorrow morning, we will dig 5 paths leading to the river in the village. When you return, inform each household, as I can't run back and forth. By the way, don't inform Dr. Gu and his wife. They still have to take care of the injured." "All right, then it's decided." The patriarch nodded in agreement. After that, no one was in the mood to stay any longer. They left immediately and went to inform each household. But in the end, the patriarch still told Gu Qingrui and Zhou so that they would know what was going on. The next day, after examining the 3 injured, the couple ended up following Tian Zhuang and his sister to clear the snow. Because they were digging a path wide enough for a cart, the entire villagers' effort only dug 5 paths in a day. Over the next few days, they started to shovel snow into the river daily. First, it was snow from the village streets, then from each household. This busy period lasted for nearly half a month. 2 weeks later, they cleared a large portion of the snow in the village, including the snow near each house, into the river. The villagers could finally drink from the well again. At the same time, as the snow melted, the weather became colder and colder. It was so cold that even if they kept burning their stove, the house still couldn't stay warm. As a result, a large number of the elderly and children fell ill. Gu Qingrui saw villagers coming to his house daily to ask for medicine. Still, because the medicine cabinet at home was running out, he did not dare continue giving out medicine, or else something would definitely happen. He could only tell everyone to eat chili and drink more water to overcome the cold. At the same time, he ground some scallions and ginger into powder and let the children drink it. Gradually, the situation in the village stabilized. People didn't dare leave their houses in this weather. On the other side, Hu Chun and the others did not bother to clean up the snow in the village. Instead, after each household had opened up a path, they quickly dug a passage to the manor. They had to make sure that they had something to eat first. Manager Liu, who lived in the courtyard, was so shocked that his jaw almost fell when he saw Hu Chun and his men. He didn't expect them to dig a path here this quickly. After knowing their purpose for coming, he understood why they had rushed over. Then, he looked at their skinny appearance and hesitated before asking, "I can make the decision to sell food to you, but do you still have any silver?" Chapter 333 Snowstorm 5. When Hu Chun heard that, he gritted his teeth and kneeled, "We still have 50 silver taels. Can you sell us 3 cows and some grain? We'll definitely pay off the silver we owe within a year. The villagers who followed behind immediately kneeled and begged. Manager Lu looked at Hu Chun, who was kneeling on the ground and kowtowing. He couldn't help but admire him from the bottom of his heart. Hu Chun proved to be a person who could bend to the situation, and few people would do so in front of their subordinates. Moreover, Manager Lu knew that Hu Chun's main concern was his villagers. Otherwise, with his ability, it would not be a problem to protect his family through the winter. He went forward to help Hu Chun up. You don't have to do this. Wait a moment. One have to discuss this with the others and make a decision. Thank you, thank you. Hu Chun thanked Manager Lu repeatedly and placed the money bag he had brought on the table. When Manager Lu saw this, he immediately got his subordinates to call Uncle Nian and Chang Shun over. He called them to a side room and told them about the matter. What do you guys think of this? It's fine to sell food supplies to them, but I'm just worried that it'll be troublesome if they have other selfish thoughts after that, especially regarding the white sweet potatoes. Chang Shun spoke at this moment. Indeed, they are different from those other villages. After going through many life and death situations, their inside is ruthless. Uncle Nian agreed. If we don't give it to them, they'll have a better reason to cause trouble. That's the most troublesome part of this. If they dare cause any trouble after we give them their food supplies, we won't have to hold back then. Chang Shun and Uncle Nian exchanged a look and replied, since you've already considered the consequences, we'll heed your decision. How about we give them 50,000 pounds of the white sweet potatoes, plus the 3 cows? If they eat them sparingly, it should be enough for them to get through the winter. Manager Lu proposed. All right, well, do as you say. With such a heavy snowfall, we'll be able to plant a plethora of sweet potatoes next year. Chang Shun added. Manager Lu nodded and returned to Hu Chun, informing them of their decision. This is the best we can do for you. The white potatoes are a one-time thing, you can split them on your own. Thank you so much. Hu Chun expressed his gratitude to Manager Lu. The others were also pleasantly surprised because they knew that with these food supplies, although they would still starve, they would not starve to death in the winter. Let's write a written agreement. After Manager Lu explained what they were getting, he quickly wrote an agreement and marked the price of the white potatoes as 10 coppers per pound. After Manager Lu finished, he handed it to them and asked them to press their fingerprints on it one by one. Remember, a 1-year deadline. We'll take a 30% interest if you can't make it. Thank you, Hu Chun said again, bowing and thanking Manager Lu. As for the calculation of interest on the chance of late payment, he didn't take it to heart because this was normal. The interest wasn't high either, and they could still afford it if something terrible were to happen and they couldn't make the repayment. After they were done with their thumbprints, Manager Lu told them to wait while Chang Shun sent others to the warehouse to prepare the white potatoes for them. Hu Chun didn't stay idle either. He immediately returned to report the good news and asked his villagers to return with carts. At night, all the white potatoes had been transported away. Manager Lu reminded Hu Chun, those sweet potatoes were squeezed out of our rations. I hope you can make reasonable arrangements as there won't be any more in the future. I understand. I will see you soon in the new year. Hu Chun bowed again, then caught up with the line of villagers carting away the white potatoes. As for the 3 cattle they brought, they were the ones driving the carts back. They had even made these cattle to help transport the white potatoes on a few round trips. After they returned, Hu Chun gathered everyone and said, "These are our winter food supplies for this year. So to save food and firewood, I've decided that we cook in large batches for everyone to eat together as a community. What do you all think?" Chapter 334 Snowstorm 6. I agree. We didn't prepare enough firewood, so we can save a lot if we eat together. Right, if we eat together, we can keep track of what's left. The point is that if everyone ate together, there would be no constant argument about how to divide food. Those who agree, raise your hand. Hu-chun heaved a sigh of relief. To be honest, he was terrified that everyone would disagree. Once the food was distributed, those who ate quickly would run out and ask for more. Would the others be willing to divide their portion further? They wouldn't be happy if he ignored their pleas, then. Even if he refused to divide the remaining portion further, he couldn't just watch them starve. It would trigger conflicts if this happened. Fortunately, most of the people had raised their hands. Even those who disagreed with it slowly raised their hands when they saw that everyone had raised their hands. Great, Uncle Hu said. How much silver did we spend this time? Hu-chun, can you give us an estimate? I spent 50 taels of silver, but one owed them 10 taels of cattle money and 50 taels of white potato money. I only have 10 taels of silver left in reserve. This silver is for buying all kinds of farming equipment next year, so don't hold any hope of using it to buy more meat and food. At this point, Hu-chun turned his head and said, Uncle will do the math later and ensure that this amount of food will be enough for us to eat for 4 months. All right, Uncle Hu replied with a nod. Although the others felt their stomachs twist after hearing this, they didn't say anything, as this was for their survival. Hu-chun continued, in the meantime, everyone can take a look at the nearby mountains. If we catch some prey, it's our lucky day. However, no one is allowed to go up the mountains. Otherwise, if something really happens, we won't even be able to find a doctor. Speaking of doctors, should we dig a road to Shangha village? Someone asked. It will depend on the situation. If we have the strength, then we will dig. So, take care of yourself these days. Don't catch a cold, and don't get hurt. After more than half a day of exposure to the wind and sun, the snow melted a little. However, a layer of ice formed on it, and it became much sturdier than before. The thickness of the snow was also about 1 foot lower than before. No one could walk on them. Every step one took would bury half of their leg in snow. Gu Qingrui tried to ski, but he could not. After that, Zhuang was let out to try pulling a snow sled, but it was difficult for him to even walk on the snow. In the end, the couple nailed 2 crude and light 3x3 wooden rafts, then put them on the snow. They traveled to the front of the manor step by step. At the same time, he would step on the snow with every step he took, and the snow would instantly sink in about a foot. When the bored children at home saw this, they immediately joined in on the fun. All of a sudden, everyone in the village started to move around. After all, everyone had a few relatives among the other villagers, and they wanted to know how they were doing and if anyone was still alive. Seeing this, the village chief created a team to open up a road to town. So, in the afternoon, the couple was left alone. This made it convenient for Zhouing to use her inner space to store and release the wooden rafts, while Gu Qingrui was tasked with shoving the snow into the wooden rafts. When they were about to reach the manor, the two returned to their original method of traveling. The next afternoon, Manager Liu received the news and saw Gu Qingrui and his wife's actions from afar. He immediately laughed and said, although this method is a little stupid, it is much faster than digging a path. After that, he quickly got someone to drag the wooden rafts over. When he saw the couple panting heavily from exhaustion, he said, "You two must be tired. Hurry up and come in to rest. One have something to tell you." After that, he took them to the courtyard houses and told them about selling meat and white sweet potatoes to Hu-chun. He handed the receipt to Zhouing and said, "One saw they were too pitiful, so." Chapter 335 Snowstorm 7 Uncle Liu, you did the right thing. Otherwise, if they were really forced into a corner, I'm afraid the manor would not be able to live in peace. Zhouing took the receipt and replied. It's fine as long as you don't blame me. By the way, how's your village doing? Manager Lu asked. Pretty good. We took notice of the snowstorm in time, but 3 houses collapsed, and 3 people were injured. What? 3 people were injured. Are Zhang Qingqing and her family okay? Qian Zhuang ran in and asked. What's the rush, kiddo? If something happened, we would have come to you long ago. Gu Qingrui teased. Hee, one just panicked. Oh, right, what about our old house? Your house was renovated before you rented it out. It's quite strongly built, so nothing happened. That's great, you guys continue while I return to the village with Jiang. After Qian Zhuang finished speaking, he turned around and ran out. It's really different when a man has a wife. In the past, I've never seen him so concerned about anything other than money. Manager Lu laughed. Well, a person does change after having a family. Shouing said with a smile. After chatting for a while, they learned about the situation at the manor. They found out that there was no trouble other than a few newborn lambs freezing to death. The couple got up and left. At the same time, they told Manager Lu that their village was paving the way to town. The road was much smoother on the way back, and the two skated back to the village much faster than usual. After Qian Zhuang brought Gu Erjiang back to the village, he went straight to Zhang Qingqing's house. After making sure that she was fine, the two helped her reinforce the roof of her house. After that, he reported to the village chief and the patriarch that he was safe before returning to the manor. 5 days later, the road to town was cleared, and the couple skated into town. They found that many houses in town had collapsed. Fortunately, the main road was cleared, just like their village. When the two arrived at Grassland Taste Restaurant, they saw that the place was intact. They heaved a sigh of relief and walked in from the side door. Fang Qing, who was practicing martial arts in the yard, was surprised when he saw them. Master, how did you guys get here? The village used wooden rafts to dig a path out. How are you guys? Are you all okay? Shouing asked. Uncle Zhaoqing fell down the ladder while cleaning the snow on the 2nd floor. Fortunately, there was snow underneath him, and nothing serious happened. However, he injured his waist and has been lying in bed for several days. And you guys just waited like this? Gu Qingrui asked. We don't know where the doctor's residence is, so we only rub some safflower oil on him daily. He's feeling better now compared to a few days ago. You guys continue chatting, I'll go over and take a look. Gu Qingrui walked into Zhao Cheng's room after he finished speaking. Is there anything else you need to let us know? Shouing asked. I guess there are some. We didn't prepare enough firewood, but we still had enough to burn for another month. Now that the road is cleared, we'll go up the mountain to get some more firewood. Shouing shook her head and said, I saw a lot of collapsed houses in town. See if anyone wants the wood, you can buy it if they don't. I would prefer you buy those and use them as firewood. As for gathering actual firewood, it's unrealistic to do so with such thick snow before it melts. I understand. When it's my turn to join the rescue team tomorrow, I'll ask Constable Tian if I can bring some back. Rescue team. Yeah. The constable is organizing people to save those buried at home. I'm staying home to look after the house today, while Qiu Yu and the others were called to cook for the masses. I see. By the way, is our courtyard all right? It's fine. It's just the storage room that collapsed. That's good. You guys can take some time off to collect broken wood and use it as firewood. By the way, you must go back to your house from time to time. It'll get dilapidated if you don't live there for a long time. I will. Chapter 336 Snowstorm 8. On the other side, Gu Qingrui entered the room and walked to the bed to examine Zhao Qing. He said, "Fortunately, it's only a tendon injury, but just the safflower oil won't do. I'll make some ointment for you later, and remember to apply a hot compress. Also, you must take good care of yourself and not catch a cold. Otherwise, it may cause a chronic illness." "I'll remember it, sorry for the trouble." Zhao Xing nodded. "In any case, you fell and injured yourself while working for the restaurant. Rest well for a few days." After Gu Qingrui finished speaking, he gave him a few more instructions. He then left the room. After that, the couple did not stay and quickly returned home. By the time they reached home, it was already freezing. The two made a cup of onion soup and drank it. They then heated up the stove and ate a hot pot of mutton soup. After lunch, Gu Qingrui went straight to the inner space to make some herbal medicine. Zhou Ying, on the other hand, had some free time. She then remembered that there were 3 chickens in their backyard in addition to the horses. The chicken was frozen to death from the snowstorm, but it was still meat. Thus, she went straight to the backyard, fed the horse water from her inner space, and added firewood to the underground storeroom. She took out the shovel and started digging at the chicken nest's approximate location. After about 2 hours, she finally found 3 frozen chickens and 2 frozen eggs. She took 2 eggs and a chicken to the kitchen, putting them by the stove and defrosting them. As for the others, they were buried back in the snow. In the evening, Zhou Ying simply stewed chicken soup with a few wolfberries and red dates. When the meal was ready, the village chief walked in. After seeing the chicken soup on their table, he said, "I was wondering whose chicken was so fragrant. Half the village could smell it. Grandpa Qian. You're here, let's eat together." "No, I've already prepared dinner. I'm here because the village constable has given us a task. He asked us to send a group of people to other villages to help save them. I thought that if someone were injured, one would like Qingrui to come with us tomorrow. By the way, everyone who goes will be given 1 pound of mixed noodles daily. But I'm short on medicine now." Gu Qingrui wanted to say something but stopped. "I'm aware of this. I've applied to get medicinal herbs from the village constable. I've also heard that it was from the Zhou medicine shop. Tomorrow, you can see what can be used and what can't, and we will do our best and leave it to fate." "Alright, I'll go over earlier tomorrow." After Gu Qingrui finished speaking, he asked him to sit and eat with them. The village chief quickly turned around. "No, I'll go back first. You guys hurry up and eat. Don't let the food get cold." Gu Qingrui saw he could not keep the village chief from leaving, so he sent him out. He locked the door when he came back. The following day, after breakfast, Gu Qingrui went to the village chief's house with the ointment he had prepared for Zhao Qing. When he discovered the village chief was going to the newly formed village, he said, "Grandpa Qian, that place is connected to the manor. If you want to know more about the situation, you can go there directly. The village is newly built and is safe." "That's great, but making a round trip is better. We will request that they send some people to help save others, and at least they get a share of the food." "You're right." Gu Qingrui nodded in agreement and asked, "By the way, where did you put the medicinal herbs?" "It's in the west wing of my house. I'll take you there now." After the village chief finished speaking, he brought him into the west chamber of his house. Chapter 337 Leopard from the Mountains 1. After Gu Qingrui went in, he went forward to look at the medicinal bags one by one. He did not expect them to all be bottom-of-the-barrel stuff. If it wasn't inferior goods, then it was crushed and mangled. Fortunately, it was not soaked and could still be used. He picked up some medicine for external injuries and went to town with Qian Jiaxi and the others. After sending the ointment to Zhao Qing, he returned to the gathering point. When he saw Dr. Luo standing in the crowd, Gu Qingrui asked, "Master Luo, is everything all right at home?" "Pretty good. What about you guys?" Dr. Luo immediately turned his head and replied after hearing his voice. "Not bad, but it's freezing. Once the fire stops, we can't stay in the house." "Same here. Fortunately, we took the firewood and charcoal from the clinic back home. Otherwise, we would have frozen silly." At this time, Tian Jingzhong walked over with a yawn. After assigning the tasks to everyone, he said, "Everyone, you've seen the road paved by Shanghe village, right? Let's use the same method. It's not only energy saving but also fast. Let's try to get a clear understanding of the situation in each village within 2 days." We saw it. If I had known we could do something like this, we would have saved much effort. Someone immediately chimed in. "All right, let's hurry up and set off. We'll gather here at night." After Tian Jingzhong finished speaking, he stopped Qian Jiaxi and asked, "Jiaxi, where's your father?" "They went to Axayanan village, the newly built village. One heard the path there has been cleared, so my father went over to ask for help," Jiaxi replied. "I see. All right, you lead your team and save as many people as possible." "Roger that, we'll go now," Qian Jiaxi affirmed and went after his team. Meanwhile, Tian Jingzhong waited in place. After about half an hour, the village chief and Hu Chun rushed over with a group of people. After exchanging a few polite greetings, Tian Jingzhong assigned them the villages they needed to check on and then left on his own with a few teams of soldiers in the direction of the county. After Gu Qingrui left, Zhouing was bored at home. She took out some cold-proof plates from her inner space and placed them in the backyard. She began to store large amounts of ice in her warehouse, so she could make smoothies to sell in the summer. In just one day, more than 10 batches of ice were stored. After storing the last batch of ice in her inner space, she went to the shed to get some firewood to cook with. Just as she picked up a bundle of firewood, she suddenly heard a shout from outside, "Help! Help! Someone help!" Zhouing was stunned. Despite the sharpness of the voice, she recognized it as Sister Tian's. She remembered that Brother Tian had gone out, so she quickly took out a bottle of pepper spray and ran out. As soon as she stepped out of the door, she saw an animal resembling a big cat pouncing on Sister Tian. It was biting and tearing her arm, and it was already bleeding. After hesitating for just a moment, she picked up the stick she used to lock her doors at night and rushed over. As soon as she got close, the big cat raised its head and bared its fangs at her. It also let out a low growl from its throat, obviously warning her. At the same time, when the big cat looked up, Zhouing found that it was not a cat but a leopard. According to its body shape and appearance, it was a leopard. However, she didn't know why it didn't have the typical leopard stripes and looked a bit like a civet cat. Thinking of this, she felt a chill in her heart. She had never seen how fast a leopard could run but had heard about it. It was an animal that could take her life at any time. The leopard saw that she didn't come close, so it immediately lowered its head and continued to bite at its prey. However, because of the oversized cotton-padded jacket, the bite did not clamp down smoothly. It let go and pressed its paw on the wound. Then, it turned its head and bit at Sister Tian's neck. Zhouing returned to her senses and happened to see this scene. She immediately ran over with her stick. When the leopard heard her running over, it turned its head and looked over. Then, a fierce glint shone from its eyes. It bent its legs slightly and pounced toward Zhouing. Chapter 338 Leopard from the Mountains, 2. Seeing this, Zhouing no longer cared about the stick. Instead, she raised her hand and quickly sprayed the pepper spray at it. This time, not only did the leopard choke and scurry to the snow pile not far away, even Zhou was choking and sneezing non-stop. When Sister Tian saw this, she immediately stood up and ran over to support Zhou. Zhou, are you okay? I'm fine. When Zhou opened her mouth, she sneezed and handed her the pepper spray. After that, she sneezed a few more times and finally recovered. The leopard's reaction was much stronger than hers. It choked and rolled around in the snow but did not intend to leave. At that moment, the villagers heard the commotion and rushed over. Seeing the leopard rolling in the snow, someone asked, "This must be a leopard, right? Why is it in the village? It's probably hungry. Look at how thin it has become. This is bad. We have to kill it. Otherwise, we won't know when it will kill one of us." A clan elder walked out at that precise moment to warn. Everyone ran to Zhou Ying's and Tian family's houses to find weapons. Zhou also immediately went home and then took out a crossbow, aiming at the leopard that had begun to escape. The arrow shot out and hit the leopard's leg, causing the running leopard to fall down instantly. "Go! It'll be troublesome if it gets into the village," the elder immediately urged. As soon as he finished speaking, a few older men immediately rushed forward with rods in their hands. They swung their farming tools at the leopard. Because the leopard's leg was injured and it was starving too, it struggled a few times before the surrounding villagers killed it. Zhou stepped forward and collected the arrows from the leopard's body. It seems that the animals on this mountain have run out of options. We'll have to send people to patrol in the future. Indeed, it seems like we really have to be careful in the future. The clan elder nodded in agreement. He then saw that the clothes of the villagers around him were more or less scratched and torn. He raised his hand and coughed dryly. "This leopard isn't that big, you guys can split it." Zhou shook her head immediately, as cat meat was sour and she didn't like to eat it. She walked directly to Sister Tian's side and said, "Sister Tian, come with me. I'll treat your wounds." "Sigh, it's all thanks to you today. I'm afraid one would have lost my life if it weren't for you." Sister Tian nodded and followed her home. When Zhou had almost cleaned up the wounds on her arm, Gu Qingrui rushed back. Zhou immediately stood up and said, "Rui, you should bandage it. I'm going to cook." "Sure, remember to make me a cup of ginger soup. I'm freezing," Gu Qingrui requested, and he rubbed his hands hard before treating Sister Tian's wounds. Gu Qingrui looked at the wound and asked, "Sister Tian, was this bitten by a cat?" Uncle Gu mentioned it was a leopard. After Sister Tian finished speaking, she briefly repeated what had happened to him. Gu Qingrui immediately fell silent and began to treat her wounds seriously. After finishing, he hung her arm around her neck and said, "The wound isn't serious, but remember not to get it wet or frozen. Remember to come back tomorrow at this time to change your dressing." "How much is the medical fee?" Sister Tian asked. "Just give me 10 coppers for the medicine. We'll charge you as a whole when you are well," Gu Qingrui said. "Thank you. Do take your rest, and I'll be going back." After saying that, Sister Tian stood up and walked home. Chapter 339 Countermeasure. Just as Sister Tian walked to the door, she met Tian Zhouang, who was hurrying to find her. The siblings were stunned momentarily, and Tian Zhouang asked, "Sister, are you okay?" "It's all right, it's not serious," Sister Tian replied. "She didn't hurt her bones. She'll be fine after a good rest," Gu Qingrui echoed. Tian Zhouang heaved a sigh of relief and looked at the wound. It was on her forearm, and it would definitely show in the summer. "Will it leave a scar?" he asked again. "Yes, but after the wound heals, it'll be completely invisible after 2 months of applying some scar removal cream," Gu Qingrui answered. "That's great. I'll leave you to your work, and we'll talk later. After Tian Zhuang finished speaking, he left with Sister Tian. Gu Qingrui washed his hands and went to the kitchen. He saw Zhou sitting in front of the stove and approached her. Babe, what are you going to cook for dinner? Millet congee, cabbage and vinegar sauce, and a few mutton steamed buns. Is there anything else you want to eat? Zhou asked. If there is, one can continue cooking. No. But just make a few more buns. I'm a little hungry today. Alright, the water is boiling. Take out your bowl, and I'll make you a bowl of ginger soup now. Yay, thanks. Gu Qingrui rejoiced and turned around to remove a bowl from the cupboard, placing it on the stove. Seeing this, Zhou took a packet of scallion and ginger powder from her inner space, poured it into the bowl, and then poured in the boiling water. The green onion's fragrance and the ginger's spicy taste instantly wafted out. Zhou saw this, poured the washed millet into the boiling pot, and covered it again. Wrap it with a cloth and take it away. Drink it while it's hot. Gu Qingrui took a piece of cloth from the side and placed it on the table. He put the bowl on it, then brought over a stool and slowly drank the soup. After drinking the bowl of ginger soup, Gu Qingrui felt completely alive again. The village chief didn't let our village take the mixed noodles from the higher-ups, so we worked for nothing, he said. That's the right thing to do anyway, as one heard there aren't many noodles available. By the way, how's the situation in the other villages? Zhou asked after she finished preparing the dishes. Many people died, but the snowstorm actually killed only a few. Most of them froze or starved to death. Not surprising. There's a limited amount of grain, no one stocked up on any. However, they could only blame themselves for being lazy. The situation at Enchanting village wasn't much better than theirs originally. They should have found a way to save themselves instead of waiting for death. Yet, they did nothing. Zhou nodded and spoke up. Gu Qingrui sighed and did not speak again. Gu Qingrui made more scallions and ginger powder when they entered the inner space that night. On the other hand, the clan elder mentioned the leopard's incident to the village chief after dinner. After the village chief heard this, he took 2 puffs of his cigarette and said, "This is troublesome. They'll be frozen silly if one asks people to patrol in such cold weather." Exactly. The problem is that it's hard even to dig a trap in such heavy snow. The patriarch added. I remember there were bells at the oil mill, right? Yes, you want to. The sound of the bell can be heard in the house, but it can't be heard outside, especially at night. I see. Then just remind everyone to lock their doors at night. During the day, let's use a net and tie bells around it. If anything breaks into the village, we will definitely hear it. Alright, leave it to me. I'll make the arrangements tomorrow morning. The patriarch affirmed. Gu Qingrui brought a big bag of scallions and ginger powder the following day and left with everyone. The patriarch gathered the remaining men and used hemp rope to draw a 3-layer net around a tree by the village. A bell was hung on each net. He told everyone about the incident and reminded them to be more vigilant. Chapter 340 Selling Meat 1. Zhou shook her head. This method was sound, but what could they do even if they heard the bell ringing? By then, the wild beasts would have already rushed into the village, so it was ineffective. Fortunately, nothing else came down the mountain over the next few days. It made sense. Leopards were not to be trifled with. If they were forced to come down the mountains, it meant that there were no animals left. Naturally, there would be nothing coming down the mountains. 5 days later, all the villages in the town were cleared, including the roads to the county. Gu Qingrui had temporarily returned to the clinic to treat the injured and sick. In an instant, the atmosphere in the village turned cold because most of the families had gone to funerals. On this day, Shoing was in the back storing more ice when she suddenly heard Zhuang's bark. She saw Guzi and Mrs. Wang walking in when she walked out. She hurriedly stopped Zhuang and let them into the house. After making a cup of chrysanthemum tea for each of them, she asked, "Auntie, big sister, what brings you here?" "I have something to ask. Wow, your room is warm." Mrs. Wang sat down and rubbed her frozen face, then covered the teacup with both hands. "I bought a lot of firewood this year, so we have a little more to spare. We do have to treat ourselves sometimes, right?" Zhou smiled and poured herself a cup of tea before sitting down. "Auntie, you said you had something to ask." "What is it?" he asked. "It's not a big deal. Qingxi's wife is pregnant, so she wants to eat a few mouthfuls of meat to nourish her and her child. In addition, it's almost the 12th lunar month, so we wanted to buy a cow from you to celebrate the new year. I don't know if it's convenient for you." Mrs. Wang explained her reason for coming. "If it's convenient, I'd like to buy a sheep too," Guzi said. "That's fine, but isn't it a little too early? The meat won't be fresh if left for too long," Zhou said. "It's fine. It's cold this year. If we put it in the snow, the meat won't go bad before it melts. We can store it for a few more months," Mrs. Wang explained. Zhou didn't try to persuade them again but asked, "When do you guys want it?" "Within 2 days if possible." At that point, Mrs. Wang hesitated and asked, "Regarding the price?" "I will charge you the same price as before all these disasters. The cattle for 20 taels each, and the sheep for 5 taels each." Zhou gave her the price. "All right, then you can send them over in the next 2 days when it's convenient. Do you want to slaughter them on your own? Not having to do that is better." "All right, it's still early now. 111 Go over to the manor in a while and bring the meat back before dark. By the way, you've been married for 2 years. Why haven't you had a child yet?" Mrs. Wang asked at this moment. "We're not in a hurry. Well, wait until this disaster is over. Otherwise, it will be bad when we can't eat anything." Zhou replied with a smile. "That's true. Our village is lucky to be supported by white sweet potatoes. Otherwise, we would be starving to the point of lying in our beds, let alone having children." Mrs. Wang nodded in agreement. "But I'm afraid there aren't many chickens left in the village. It's hard even to eat an egg," Guzi complained. "Sister, don't let anyone hear about this. Otherwise, there'll be thieves coming into your house," Zhou warned Guzi. "Indeed. Nowadays, don't say you have food no matter where you go. Otherwise, it's easy to attract hatred from the masses." Mrs. Wang nodded in agreement. After chatting and drinking 2 cups of tea, the mother-daughter pair left. Zhou packed up and dressed up like a ball of cotton. She locked the door and rushed to the manor with Zhuang, fitted in a cotton-padded jacket. Uncle Nian was momentarily surprised when he saw Zhuang in clothes. He smiled and patted the dog's head, saying, "Wow, Zhuang is wearing a cotton coat." Chapter 341 Selling Meat 2. Yeah, otherwise, it'll be so cold that Zhuang won't even come out. By the way, are the cattle and sheep okay? Zhou asked. "They're fine. I've set up a few underground kilns, so it's not too cold in the shed. Also, the dandelion, forsythia, and other medicinal herbs you brought seem to be doing quite well at the moment." "That's great to hear. By the way, I will need your help to pick a cow and a sheep for slaughter and send them to my village." "Someone is buying meat." "That's right, the head of the Gu clan. It's almost the new year, so he wants to buy meat to celebrate." "You're right, it's almost the new year." Should we send someone to try selling our livestock elsewhere? This cowshed and sheep pen are almost full. Zhou shook her head and said, no, we shouldn't. Besides Shanghe village, no one else can afford meat. It would be troublesome if the meat gets robbed. So, well, just wait for buyers to come to us. If someone wants to buy it, well, sell it. If not, well, just keep to ourselves. All right, well, do as you say. You stay here and rest while I go and get someone to prepare the cow and sheep. Uncle Nian turned around and left after he finished speaking. Zhou went to the cowshed and the sheep pen for a walk. It was much warmer inside than outside. However, because the skylight had been sealed, it was a bit stinky inside but at an acceptable level. After that, she went to the storage room. While no one was around, she placed another layer of white sweet potato vines and more medicinal herbs. When she was almost done, Chang Shun rushed over. Mistress, please come in and have a drink. It's fine. Has anything happened recently at the manor? Nothing out of the ordinary. It's just that the weather is too cold, so we don't go out if we can. The dormitory residents, in particular, have basically hibernated. Some of them didn't open their doors for 3 to 5 days. Oh right, some of them ran out of salt, so I sold them some marinated red dates. That's great. Remember that we can't just give and not receive, otherwise, we'll raise a bunch of ungrateful people. Zhou warned and continued, There's no one selling salt now. Yeah, salt is getting rare now. Back then, we needed to marinate the red dates and feed them occasionally to the cattle and sheep. So, through Manager Liu, I went to the town to buy an entire cart of salt and cleared the small store. Sparingly use them. It's snowing heavily now, and we don't know when the roads will be cleared. I understand. We'll try our best to save as much as possible. Afterward, they returned to the guest house and sat down to drink a glass of water. After the cow and sheep meat were prepared, including frozen blood tofu, they were all wrapped in oil paper and returned to the village on a donkey cart. When they arrived at the door of the patriarch's house, Zhou asked someone to take the goods in. After unloading them and receiving the silver, Zhou turned around and left. Mrs. Wang stopped her. It's time to eat. Why don't you eat here? It saves you the trouble of going back to cook. Yeah. Do stay. We will cook a piece of blood tofu and stew a whole cabbage. Gu Qingxi added. Maybe another day. I didn't snuff out the fireplace when I came out. I'm afraid my house will catch fire if I don't return now. Zhou turned around and walked out after saying her goodbyes. Seeing this, Mrs. Wang could only send her out the door. Please come over to have meat with us one day. All right, you guys go ahead and have dinner. We will come over on a later date. Zhou then dismissed Qian Zhuang, who drove the cart here, and returned home herself. In the evening, because of the smell of meat and news of her sending meat to Gu Zi's house, the villagers soon knew that Zhou had brought meat back from the manor. They all came to her door one by one, thinking of buying some meat for the new year. Chapter 342 Selling Meat 3. Zhou thought of the cow and sheep she couldn't afford to raise and was happy to see this. She then took a book and recorded the amount each family wanted to buy. She even asked them to help advertise when they returned home, so those who wanted to buy meat would come to her. She told them she would be sending the meat to them tomorrow. After Gu Qingrui returned home, he looked at the people coming and going and asked around. After understanding their purpose here, he went to the kitchen to cook dinner. After eating their fill, Gu Qingrui looked at a registration book and exclaimed, "Good Lord, all of them are crazy. The minimum orders are 10 pounds of beef and a tub of blood tofu." They earned quite a hefty sum after selling the chilies and sweet potatoes last year. There's still a month before the new year, so isn't it normal to eat some meat to celebrate? That's true, then let's butcher 1 more cow and 2 more sheep. Well, send some to Dr. Luo, Constable Tian, the county magistrate, and the people at the restaurant. Well, also prepare some New Year's gifts. Sure. How are things over there? If you are busy, I'll ask Brother Tian for help. We're almost done. By the way, I'm thinking of bringing some chili over. Too many people have recently been suffering from frostbite, and chili water can help relieve some of it. Are they going to pay? Zhou Ying asked with a smile. You little money grubber. Gu Qingrui tapped her nose and continued, yes, of course. After all, we spent money on them. But I'm afraid we won't be able to make any money from it. It's fine. It would be lying around in our storage anyway. It's good to sell it now. Okay, I'll take a truckload of it tomorrow. After that, the two went to the interspace. Zhou Ying harvested another batch of sweet potatoes and planted the fields with wheat. After Gu Qingrui finished chores in the grassy fields, he took out 6 sacks of chili. The following day, the two of them parted ways after breakfast. However, when Zhou Ying set off again this time, she brought Tian Zhuang with her and Zhuang. After lunch, Zhou Ying returned to the village with 5 carriages when the sun was high in the sky. Finally, they stopped under a big tree at the village entrance. She gave candy to a few children who were running around the village playing hide-and-seek and asked them to help her summon the villagers. After everyone had arrived, she led Tian Zhuang and the 5 coachmen and began to sell the meat according to the ordered amount. When almost everyone got their orders, those who felt they had bought too little bought more when they saw that there was still a lot of meat. Zhou Ying didn't stop them. At most, she would just need to get more meat tomorrow. Once she gave the green light, the extra cow and 2 sheep were all sold, and in the end, there was not even a sliver of meat left. Zhou Ying had no choice but to say to the coachman, everyone, when you return, tell Uncle Nian to slaughter another cow and 2 sheep. Send them here tomorrow morning. Don't worry, mistress. We'll be going back now. Go. Be careful on the slippery roads. After sending off the coachman, Tian Zhuang said, Zhou Ying, can you leave me some lard before the new year? There's no oil at home. No problem, but I can't be sure how much we'll have left. It's fine as long as we can cook something for the new year. That's not a problem. After returning home, Zhou Ying counted the earnings. There were almost 200 taels of silver, coming from 5 cows and 10 sheep. It was much more profitable than selling them as a whole. When Gu Qingrui returned and discovered that all the meat had been sold out, he commented happily, now, we don't have to eat meat secretly anymore. Indeed. I've prepared a hot pot with spicy soup tonight. Wash your hands, and we'll be eating soon. After Zhou Ying said that, she turned around and went to the kitchen. After dinner, Gu Qingrui handed Zhou Ying 20 taels of silver and said, these are the silver from selling the chilies. A few prominent families in town bought chilies for seasoning, so I sold them at a slightly higher price than usual. Chapter 343 Selling Meat 4. As soon as Zhou Ying heard that, her eyes lit up. She took the silver and asked, that's normal. Are there a lot of wealthy people in town now? You want to sell the meat? That's right. If we don't sell to them before the new year, who knows when we'll have to wait for the next opportunity. Also, cattle and sheep will go into heat once spring arrives. We can't just stop them from breeding. I'll try to ask around then. Thanks. Also, ask around if there's anyone selling pork. We have to buy some fatty meat to prepare for the restaurant and the manor. Beef and mutton can't compare to pork, after all. I haven't seen anyone selling pork in town. Why don't we ask Manager Liu? He's more well-informed than us. That's true. I'll go over to the manor again tomorrow. By the way, you shouldn't leave that early tomorrow. I've asked them to send the beef and mutton over early in the morning. I'll go with you tomorrow morning. All right, you drive the carriage. The next day, the couple was afraid the manor would send the meat over, so they got up early and rushed over. After Gu Qingrui left with the butchered meat, Zhou found Manager Liu and asked him about buying pork. She didn't expect Manager Liu's manor to have it, but he only kept the breeding pigs to save food. It was near the county, but it was still too far. Because of the heavy snow, Manager Liu was unsure if even his pigs had survived. On the other end, after Gu Qingrui arrived in town, he sent a holiday gift to Tian Jingzhong's house in an open and above-board manner. In return, he received 2 pounds of salt, 5 pounds of white sugar, and 2 batches of cotton cloth. As expected, someone came to Gu Qingrui to buy meat in the afternoon. Gu Qingrui immediately got them to write their order. In the next half a month, he sold another 20 cows and 100 sheep, either in whole or in small amounts. All the wealthy households in the vicinity became his customers in one fell swoop. The day before the new year, Gu Qingrui butchered a sheep in the interspace. He prepared 5 pounds of mutton as festival gifts for the various families in the village and had an extra 10 pounds of cotton for his old house. After sending the gifts, the two were just about to leave when Madame Chiao stopped the young couple. She asked, "Are you guys familiar with the Yu family in town?" "The Yu family? The one that lives near the academy?" Gu Qingrui asked. "Yes, their family. 2 days ago, a matchmaker proposed a marriage to Qingye, and she said the bride would be the Yu family's eldest granddaughter. But the matchmaker's words can't be trusted completely, so I'm asking if you know her. Especially the bride's character." Father Gu added. Although their family had declined, they didn't want their son to marry a troublemaker. "Our Qingye is such a handsome man, the bride looks must look good as well," Mrs. Liu echoed. Gu Qingrui was speechless. He was a man. How could he know the details of the girl about to be married? He had no choice but to say, "I only know that their grandfather opened a bookstore near the academy in his early years. Their family also has about 50 acres of land. His eldest son is a scholar who opened a private school in town to teach the children, and his wife and children care for the village elderly. His second son had replaced old Master Yu in managing the bookstore in town. Honestly, I've only seen the second son's family, not the eldest. However, the second son's daughter is only 14 years old. She shouldn't be the bride." "That's right. The daughter of the eldest son's family is the one offering the marriage. They claim that she has remained unmarried because of the recent disasters and is already 17 years old," Madame Chiao said. "Then you all should ask around. As long as the Yu family doesn't favor men over women in their upbringing, I think the eldest granddaughter of the family shouldn't have a bad character." Gu Qingrui gave his piece. "Oh right, how did they know about Qingye?" he asked curiously. Chapter 344 The beginning of spring. I'm really not sure. It seems that I have to ask around. Mrs. Chiao shook her head. After that, she swept her gaze across the crowd and said, "All of you, put some effort into this matter and find out." Finally, she looked at Mrs. Liu. "You go and ask 6th Aunt Gu. She is very well informed." "I know, Mother. I'll go over tomorrow." Mrs. Liu nodded. They chatted for a while and agreed to have a hot pot party here on the evening of the 30th. After that, the couple went home. In the blink of an eye, the 15th day of the first month of the lunar year passed. The village had nothing noteworthy happening except the constant smell of meat. As for visiting relatives, there was no point in that this year. As for the Yu family's eldest granddaughter, the Gu family had inquired about her. She was pretty and pleasant. Not only was she literate, but she was also good at embroidery. The only pity was that she didn't know how to cook and had never been in the fields before. This was also the reason why she was not getting married. The reason they knew about Gu Qingye was simple. They had learned about him from the matchmakers, who exchanged information with each other. On the 15th day of the month, the two youngsters went to town to meet with the matchmaker, and the marriage was quickly fixed. After the 15th, everyone was anxious because the weather was still so cold, and the snow showed no signs of melting. If this continued, they were afraid that they would not be able to catch up with the spring planting season. After all, with such heavy snow, even if it melted, it would still take half a month for the ground to dry before they could plant. But no matter how anxious they were, they could do nothing. The village chief could only bring people to clear the snow again, especially on the main roads. On the 8th of February, Gu Zishan got married. Zhou Ying gave her a set of clothes made of material according to Gu Ziqia's standards, and she added 100 pounds of white potatoes. The dowry prepared by the family was also simple. It was just 500 pounds of white sweet potatoes, but Hu Chun was more than satisfied. As for the betrothal gift, she only found out later that Hu Chun had given her 6 taels of silver for a set of silver jewelry and nothing else. The snow began to melt rapidly in March. At the same time, the 2 wells in the village also began to produce large amounts of water. By April, the snow had melted entirely, and the river started flowing again. However, the water level was half as low compared to before. In the middle of April, Zhou Ying and Gu Qingrui began to teach the villagers how to plant sweet potatoes and chili seedlings. They went to help out at the manor after teaching the villagers. However, as soon as they entered the manor, they found that they all had their heads drooped and looked depressed. Gu Qingrui grabbed Li Si, who was on patrol, and asked, "Did something happen in the manor? There's a cellar full of frozen sweet potato seedlings, and they can't be planted anymore." Li Si replied. "What? They froze?" Zhou Ying exclaimed. "Yes, they all went bad." Li Si replied. Gu Qingrui and Zhou Ying immediately rushed to the cellar where the seedlings were stored. As expected, there were many rotten white sweet potatoes on the ground. However, now was not the time to be distressed, so the two had to go to the field to help to manage the seedlings. They would only have to transplant a few more seedlings like last year. "Mistress, I'm really sorry. We didn't expect." Chang Shun, who was planting the seedlings, apologized with a face full of self-blame when he saw them coming over. "It's not all your fault. Last winter was too cold, and we must learn from this lesson." Zhou Ying said. "Yes, I'll be more careful in the future. Then hurry up and get to work. Otherwise, we'll lose even more if we don't plant at the optimal time." "Understood." After Chang Shun finished speaking, he directed everyone to get busy. At this moment, Manager Lu walked over. "You're here just in time to let you know about something. I'll be leaving when the sweet potato seedlings grow." "But why? It's so much better to stay here," Gu Qingrui quickly said. The couple could have less to worry about with them guarding the manor. They did not have to worry about the safety of the manor. Chapter 345. Sharing salt. Manager Lu could tell what they were thinking. He smiled and said, "Don't worry, 111 still leaves some people behind. Besides, Li Si and the others can now take charge of things on their own, so you don't have to worry about the safety of the manor. You're going to promote white sweet potatoes to the masses?" Zhou Ying asked with a smile. "Yes, we should at least promote it to Yunhe County as much as possible. It's just a pity that those seeds are wasted. Otherwise, it would have been faster. We're lucky not to have everything frozen solid after that cold weather." "You're right." Manager Lu nodded in agreement. It was difficult even to have seedlings after such cold weather last year. By the way, I thought of only leaving you 100 acres of seeds this time. I might need to take the rest with me, Manager Lu asked. Sure, as long as we have enough to eat. You and County Magistrate Kong can decide on the rest. I thank you on behalf of the people of Yunhe County. Manager Lu thanked the couple. 3 days later, after the seedlings in the manor were planted, the couple cleaned up the land in their backyard and planted more. Once they grew, they would sell some if they could and eat them if they couldn't. One day, Shouing was drying her quilt in the yard when Guzi walked in. She asked, "Sister-in-law, are you busy?" "I'm just drying the blanket." "Come in and take a seat." After Shouing finished speaking, she hung up the quilt and welcomed her into her living room. "Sister, did you come over for something?" She poured her a glass of water. "I do have 2 things I need your help with." Guzi nodded. "There's no more salt at home. So, I don't know if you have any extras at home to spare me some. Also, I bought 5 acres of land recently. Don't know if you have extra white potato and chili seedlings for sale. I do have salt, but it's large salt clumps. If you want it, one can give you a pound. As for the potato seedlings, I can give you about 3 acres of land worth. However, one didn't grow any chili seedlings at home this year, so one can't help out on that. This is great enough. I'll buy it from you at the same price as last year." "Sure, wait a moment." After Zhouing finished speaking, she gave her a pound of the large salt clumps she had stored and handed it to her. "We don't have much left at home, please don't tell anyone." "Definitely. I won't tell anyone. But with the road cleared, salt should be here soon." "I hope so. I heard that many families in the village have run out of salt." "That's right. By the way, this salt was selling for 50 coppers a while ago. I'll give you the money." After Guzi finished speaking, she took money from her purse and said, "I'll leave the rest with you. I'll take the change once one come to get the sweet potato seedlings." "Sure, I'll calculate it in a go." Zhouing nodded. After chatting for a while, Guzi left. Zhouing went to the nearest well with 2 sets of clothes and some soap to wash the clothes. As soon as she went out, she found that the mountains and fields were full of children digging for wild vegetables. Unfortunately, there had been 2 years of drought in a row, hampering the growth of vegetable seedlings and resulting in a small number of wild vegetables this year. "Manager Zhou, have you also come over to wash clothes? Come over to my side, there's a place to sit." Widow Hua immediately greeted her when she arrived at the wells. "Thank you, Auntie Hua." Zhouing greeted her and put her basin over. She poured a bucket of water into the basin and washed her clothes as she sat on a stone. At the same time, Widow Hua asked, "You don't have to thank me. By the way, now that the drought is over, when will your restaurant open for business?" "The drought is over, but the grain has not grown yet, so there is still a long wait. Don't worry, I'll pick up any grown chili you've planted. To be honest, it's a big loss of income once you guys stop buying vegetables." Qian Shersan quipped in. "Indeed, during the spring of 2 years ago, I could earn 2 or 3 taels of silver just by selling vegetables." Someone chimed in as well. Chapter 346 I'm hungry, that's right, all these natural disasters have delayed many things. Zhouing replied. She didn't take their little schemes to heart. Everyone was aware of the current situation. If they had any schemes because of this, there was no need to befriend such people. Fortunately, they were just making small talk and asked no more questions. They began to chit-chat after that. Only after this did she find out that Chunhong was pregnant again. Naturally, Zhouing was asked when she would get pregnant, and she had to throw out her previous excuse. This immediately shut their mouths. After all, there wasn't much to eat. The problem was that they planted the white sweet potatoes late this year, and they were unsure if the ones they kept could last until the autumn harvest. Therefore, they could only muddle through the mess and eat whatever was left. Getting pregnant at such a time would only cause suffering. Widow Hua, who understood what she said, became anxious. It seemed like she had to raise a few more chickens. Help! Help! Tai Dan is going to die. At this moment, Tiniu ran down the mountain while shouting. Zhou Ying and the others immediately looked over, but he didn't run in this direction. Instead, he ran toward the village. Not long after, she saw him dragging Gu Qingrui and Tian Zhawang up the mountain. The women immediately sped up and gathered at Zhou Ying's house after they were done washing the clothes. After waiting for a while, Tian Zhawang hurriedly carried a child who was about 10 years old down the mountain. Gu Qingrui rushed into the house and quickly performed acupuncture on the child. After a while, the child retched and vomited a pile of sticky goo. Tiniu, did he eat a poisonous mushroom? Zhou Ying asked Tiniu. No, he picked up a dead rabbit and roasted it, Tiniu replied. Dead rabbit? Zhou Ying exclaimed. If she was right, very few rabbits could survive the snowstorm. Even if there were, it would be difficult to encounter them on the periphery of the mountains. Don't tell me it's a rabbit that froze to death in the snow, she pressed for more information. It seems so. Tiniu was stunned for a moment before replying. You didn't eat it, did you? No, he had already finished eating when we arrived. Ing, go and make some soap water for Tai Dan to drink to wash his insides. Gu Qingrui shouted. He then collected some of the vomit to see if there was any mold. It would be troublesome if it caused an epidemic. Okay, Zhou Ying responded, and she immediately went back to the house. She made a large bowl of soapy water and poured it down Tai Dan's throat. After a while, Tai Dan started to vomit and had diarrhea again. Although he looked terrible, they let out a sigh of relief after seeing that he could walk normally. At the same time, Tai Dan's parents, Qian Jiaxing and his wife, came looking for him. Seeing that his son was still alive, Qian Jiaxing heaved a sigh of relief and asked, Qingrui, how's Tai Dan? Is he alright? He's okay for the time being. I'll prescribe him 2 doses of medicine later. He should be fine after taking them. If he still has a stomachache, bring him over. Also, give him some black noodles or millet porridge for the next 2 days to nourish his stomach. He can eat sweet potatoes in 2 days. Okay, I'll remember that. Tian Jiaxing looked embarrassed, but he eventually nodded. Afterward, he followed Gu Qingrui back to get 2 doses of antiparasitic and antibacterial drugs. Taini's mother had also heard from Tiniu that Tai Dan had roasted a dead rabbit to eat. She immediately twisted his ear and said, This damn child, do you not want to live anymore? How dare you go up the mountains to eat a dead rabbit? But, I'm hungry, Tai Dan replied stubbornly as he wiped away his tears. Chapter 347 A Warning, You. Hearing this, Tai Dan's mom was both angry and sad. She was angry because Tai Dan was insensible and dared eat something obviously bad. She was also sad because, in this day and age, a growing boy's appetite is larger than an adult's. They were forced to eat sweet potatoes daily, and were short of oil and salt. How could such a growing boy survive? Qian Shishan immediately stepped forward to soothe them. Madam, don't be too angry with your child. He will definitely not dare to do so in the future. After he finished, he patted Tai Dan on the head and warned him, Remember, don't eat anything that dies in the future, or it will be too late if something terrible happens. Okay. Tai Dan lowered his head and sat down on a stool. At that moment, Jiaxing came out with 2 sets of medicines. He glanced at the people in the courtyard, thanked Tian Zhuang, and brought his wife and son home. Gu Qingrui saw that the crowd was about to disperse and reminded them, "Everyone, go back and tell your children that the dead animals on the mountain must not be eaten. The least that will happen is getting a stomachache like Tai Dan. If it's serious, it might cause an epidemic. One hope everyone will take this as a warning." "Is it that serious?" Widow Hua trembled when she heard that. The others also perked up their ears to listen to his answer. After all, this matter was closely related to them. "Yes, we are lucky, we just got struck by a snowstorm. Dirty water and bloated animal corpses after a flood are the main sources of an epidemic. Everyone knows that our area, or basically the entire country, is short of medicine. So, we must be careful." Gu Qingrui solemnly warned the masses. "Qingrui is right. We have a severe shortage of medicine here, so everyone should be more careful. Also, you must tell your family not to eat dead animals." The village chief echoed as he walked in. After everyone heard this, they promised and went back to work. Seeing this, Tinyu also wanted to run off, but the village chief grabbed his collar and said, "You brat, didn't I tell you to stay home and study? Why did you go up the mountains?" "Grandpa, I'm just dizzy from all the studying, so I want to go up the mountains." 111 Go home now. After Tinyu finished speaking, he broke free from the elder's grip and quickly ran home. "He needs a beating." The village chief scolded with a smile. "Grandpa Qian, please take a seat," Gu Qingrui said. "It's fine, I'm just here to understand the situation. But is it that dangerous to eat those dead animals?" "Yes, it's dangerous and definitely can't be eaten. So I suggest that we wait until we're almost done planting in the field, organize the villagers to look for dead animals in the outer area of the mountain, and burn them once we gather them all." "I'll listen to you." The village chief nodded and then looked at Zhou. "Do you still have any cattle or sheep for sale in your manor?" "Yes, are you here to buy meat?" "Not just me. You can get someone to butcher a cow and bring the meat here. The villagers are all hungry now. If they have some meat, they won't go crazy from hunger." "Alright, 111 ask around and see how much I need to bring over." Zhou nodded. The village head was satisfied with that. On the way back, he also helped Zhou promote so that those who wanted to buy meat could book at her house. As expected, people came to visit after a short while. However, by the time everyone finished ordering what they wanted, there was still not enough information on how many were needed precisely. Thus, it was enough just to slaughter a cow and keep the extras, if there were any. At night, Gu Qingrui entered the interspace and did a test on Titan's vomit. After confirming that it was only rotten meat and did not carry any deadly viruses, he finally heaved a sigh of relief. The next morning, Gu Qingrui went to the manor and returned with a butchered cow. Chapter 348 A worsening disaster. Unexpectedly, the fastest-selling items were beef blood, beef offal, and beef bones. They were all sold out as soon as they arrived. Next were the beef ribs and lard, which were relatively more expensive and had more normal oil. In the end, only the shoulder and hip of the cow were left, which weighed about 60 kilograms. The couple looked at each other and cut 20 pounds of meat. They sent 10 to their old house and 10 to the patriarch. 2 pounds were given to each of the Tian and Wang families, and they carried the remaining home. After arriving home, Zhou stewed all the meat, leaving a few pieces for dinner, and the rest was made into beef jerky. 2 days later, when the work in the field was almost done, the village chief specially organized a group of people to gather all the dead animals in the mountains. Especially where Gu Qingrui pointed out, they had to search the area near the starting point of the river. 2 days later, they found many small animals' corpses and lit them all on fire. In the blink of an eye, it was time for Manager Lu to set off. After he set off with batches of sweet potato seedlings, Zhou found Sun Hongliang and asked him to help Chang Shun manage the manor. She saw Gu Qingrui and Zhou Huaiming, who had lost a lot of weight and dressed in rags, sitting together, drinking tea and eating beef jerky when she returned from the manor. When did Brother Zhou come over? I arrived in Yunhe County last night and came here early this morning. I craved your cooking so much that one just had to come here. What would you like to have for lunch? I brought 20 pounds of rice, 2 pounds of salt, and some salted fish with me. Do as you see fit with them. Salt? That's right. Brother Zhou brought a lot of salt for our Yunhe County. Gu Qingrui said. That's great news. You guys continue while I'm going to cook. After Zhou finished speaking, she went to the kitchen. After looking around, she cooked stewed beef, steamed mashed garlic with dried eggplant, and salted fish steamed in chili sauce. She also prepared a plate of dried meat stir-fried with green garlic, a plate of stir-fried bok choy, and a plate of white sweet potato vine salad. The three of them ate until they were full, devouring all the lovely food. Zhou Huaiming even burped a few times as he said, "To be honest, I can only have a decent meal in your house nowadays." You're exaggerating. Let's not talk about the taste. With your status, it's easy for you to enjoy a sumptuous meal. Gu Qingrui was stunned before replying. Zhou Huaiming shook his head tiredly and said, "Not really. You're guarding the mountains here and barely go out, so you might not know of the situation out there. Now, there are many places where you don't even have tree bark to eat. There were even cases of offspring being eaten. Even the situation in the capital isn't optimistic. The emperor only has one meat, one vegetable, and one soup for every meal these days. It's that serious?" Gu Qingrui asked in disbelief. After Zhou heard this, she felt a chill run down her spine. Just thinking about children being eaten made her break out in a cold sweat. There's nothing we can do about it. Many people can't buy food even if they have the silver. Zhou Huaiming affirmed their disbelief. After that, he yawned and stood up. I won't bother you two anymore. There's just one more thing, which is that I would like to stay in your manor for 2 days. I'll leave after all the white potato seedlings are planted. Brother Zhou, do stay if you don't mind the others there. We can have lunch together every day if you have the time. Zhou offered with a smile. I thought you'd never offer. All right, I'll head over first. Zhou Huaiming laughed. I'll send you there. No, it's safer for me to go alone. Zhou Huaiming got up, stretched, and walked out after that. However, the couple still sent him out. After that, the two of them looked at each other with heavy hearts. The situation outside was becoming more serious, and they didn't know how long their peaceful lives would last. Chapter 349. The difficult part is now in the afternoon. The couple went to Huzi and helped her plant white potato seedlings in the fields. The next day, they took some rice and went to the manor together. When they arrived, Gu Qingrui went straight to the courtyard to find Zhou Huaiming. Zhou found Uncle Nian and asked him to slaughter 2 sheep. However, she only took half of the sheep and gave the rest to nourish everyone's meals. When she arrived at the courtyard, she saw Zhou Huaiming and Gu Qingrui fighting with their bare hands. It seemed that Gu Qingrui had the upper hand. However, it was not difficult to see that Zhou Huaiming's martial arts foundation was much more solid than Gu Shengrui's, but Gu Qingrui was slightly better because of his special moves. Mistress, you're here. Zhu Zi walked over and greeted Zhou with a smile. Zhou turned her head to look at him. When she saw the little boy, who was much taller and stronger, she smiled and said, "You're much more energetic now. How's your martial arts training going?" Master said my crouching stance is steady, and one can already defeat an ordinary adult now. Is that so? So, you have to practice hard. I'll be counting on you guys to protect me in the future. I know, mistress. Zhu Zi nodded repeatedly. At this time, Gu Qingrui and Zhou Huaiming ended their battle in a draw. I brought half a iamb with me, Zhou said. How do you want to eat it? It's not a good day to eat hot pot. One think it's better to stew or stir-fry it. What do you think? Zhou Huaiming asked. I'll heed to that. I'll braise some of it and stir-fry the rest with cumin. Zhou looked at Gu Qingrui after she finished speaking. I'm fine with anything, Gu Qingrui said. You can use whatever ingredients we have in the kitchen. Alright, then you guys should rest for a while longer. Zhou turned around and went to the kitchen after that. Seeing that there were a lot of scallions, she added another serving of lamb with scallion fried sauce. She prepared enough portions for the three of them, and the extra was left for the long-term workers who lived here. At the same time, she instructed the kitchen staff to leave the rice for Zhou Huaiming and told them not to touch it as much as possible. Why did you bring the rice over? Zhou Huaiming asked as soon as the food was served. One saved it for you. Don't worry, we don't lack food, but hey race different. So, you should keep it for yourself. Hurry up and let's eat, Gu Qingrui said. The mutton won't taste good when it's cold. Is it because the sweet potatoes are rotten and the manor is eating up their rations? Zhou Huaiming asked. Not exactly. It's just that this year's sweet potato is planted 1 month later than last year's. There's no way everyone had saved up more than a month's worth of food, so food is lacking. Zhou shook her head and explained. Zhou Huaiming nodded and asked, by the way, the sweet potatoes planted in the south should be ready for harvest by now. I wonder if we can grow them in time here. We can plant another batch in June, but I think it's more suitable to grow it there. It'll mature faster if it's grown in warmer weather. If plantations are filled over there, it'll be better to transport them this winter or next spring. That's right. The seeds are the most important thing right now. It's just that the people here are probably going to suffer. Actually, there aren't many people left in Yunhe County. When the severe drought hit last year, a considerable part of the population had already moved south, while a portion of the remaining people had either frozen to death or starved to death during the snowstorm. The number of people left is probably less than half the original number. As long as each family could get a piece of land planted with white sweet potatoes and transplant another batch later, they could survive next winter. The difficult part is now. I heard that there's no supply of flour now. Gu Qingrui said. Chapter 350 Collecting Seeds 1. I've also heard from County Magistrate Kong that the entire county's flour can only last for a month or so. I just only hope that the wild vegetables in the field will grow as soon as possible. It is better to let the people plant some radishes, vegetables, cabbages, and so on. There are no seeds for grain now, so this land is empty anyway. It's easy for you to say. The issue is that no vegetable seeds exist elsewhere besides your area. No way. There aren't even any vegetable seeds left. It's been a 2-year drought. Besides the mountains, the other places, Zhou Huaiming shook his head and didn't continue. I remember Changshan harvesting a batch of rapeseed and spinach seeds last year. I'll ask how many are left later. Zhou said. Do ask. If there are any extras, give them to Manager Liu and ask him to plant them. We should do anything we can to help, especially in areas with no sweet potato seedlings. Alright, let's eat first. It's my first time making braised lamb chops for you, so try them. After Zhou finished speaking, she picked up a piece for him and another for Gu Qingrui. She then lowered her head and began to eat as well. After the meal, the three of them went to find Chang Shun. Chang Shun learned of their intentions and said, "General Zhou, Master and Mistress, the only vegetable seeds we have are the ones we harvested last spring. There aren't many after we planted them 2 days ago. As for the winter harvest, it's all vegetables that don't produce seeds." "Oh, right, there's about half a pound of mustard seeds left." "Well, take as much as you have. Leave enough for us, and prepare the rest. Also, go to the others and ask if there's any extra." Zhou said. "All right, 111 go now." Chang Shun turned to run after he finished speaking. Zhou quickly stopped him. "It's not that rushed. Just get them ready tomorrow morning. Also, look around and see if you can plant some more cabbage to get more seeds." "Understood, Mistress." 111 Make the arrangements now. After Chang Shun finished speaking, he ran out to make arrangements. After that, Gu Qingrui brought Zhou Huaiming around the manor and to Axian village to visit the wild roses. On the other hand, Zhou went to the grassland for a walk. Because of the white sweet potato seeds that were planted last year, there were already a lot of seedlings in the field. On the contrary, there wasn't much hay or white potato vines in the warehouse. Seeing this, Zhou was worried. She had to secretly put some dried white potato vines into the warehouse again, hoping they could last until the white potatoes grew. After Zhou Huaiming arrived at Axian village, he looked at the wild rose plant that was already full of vitality and asked, "Are these the wild roses that you said can be used as tea and medicine?" "Yes, but it's getting warmer slightly later this year, so there aren't any flowers budding yet. But one think it'll be soon," Gu Qingrui affirmed. "They look to be growing really well. The adaptability of wild plants is much stronger than planted ones. Brother Qingrui, why didn't you tell us you were coming over?" Hu Chun walked over and asked. "This is General Zhou. I've brought him here to see these wild roses." Gu Qingrui introduced the two. "Brother Zhou, this is my brother-in-law, Hu Chun. He's also the village chief of Axian village. I am Hu Chun." "Greetings, General Zhou." Hu Chun was startled for a moment before he quickly knelt and saluted. "Please get up, I'm friends with your brother, and there's no need for such a deep bow." Zhou Huaiming gave him a hand. "Thank you, General Zhou." Hu Chun stood up and followed behind him obediently. He then proceeded to give him a brief introduction to the wild roses. Chapter 351 Collecting Seeds, 2. So, there are about 2,000 acres of roses on this mountain. Yes, the ones on the mountain are more vibrant, but some died because of the snowstorm. These are the branches planted after spring, and I don't know if they will bloom well or not. Zhou Huaiming nodded and observed carefully. There were indeed many seedlings. Then, he asked, "By the way, do these mountains belong to your village?" Hu Chun nodded and replied, "When the village was first established, the land here was too barren. So, the nearby mountains, about 5,000 acres of mountainous land, were all given to our village. There are a lot of date trees on the mountain in the south, so we plan to transplant some of them in the future. We could also plant some chestnut trees, walnuts, and persimmon trees on the empty lands. No matter what, the villagers in our village can survive with all these resources." "That's a good idea. You can also try planting apple trees, pear trees, and other fruit trees, whichever will make money faster." Zhou Huaiming nodded in agreement. At the same time, he also understood why the Gu family would marry their daughter to an outsider. This young man was capable, ambitious, and promising. You can use the date tree to graft some on the bigger trees here. Although dates are relatively cheap, the output is high and easy to sell. Gu Qingrui suggested. That's right, that's a good idea. Heartwarming nodded in agreement. But do we have any good date trees in our area? Hu Chun's eyes lit up, and he asked. I'll ask Dr. Luo later, there should be. I'll have to bother you then, Brother Qingrui, to help me on this. Alright, I'll let you know when I have a definite answer. After that, they chatted briefly and then went to Hu Chun's house. After a short stay, Zhou Huaiming and Gu Qingrui returned to the manor. The couple left the manor after eating mutton soup in the evening. However, they didn't go home immediately. Instead, they went from house to collect some vegetable seeds. Although there weren't many of them, there were various types. After the two returned, they sorted the same seeds together. Zhou Ying added more than half of each type and nearly doubled the seeds of cabbage and rapeseed. These two vegetables could be eaten as soon as they grow and could alleviate the current food shortage the fastest. The following day, after breakfast, the couple took the seeds and brought Heir Zhuang to the manor. At the same time, Chang Shun had also amassed a portion, but the amount was far less than theirs. I've troubled you all, Zhou Huaiming said. With these seeds, we can solve our urgent needs. I'll personally send it over in a moment. Do you guys want to go out and look at the situation outside the village? You guys go ahead, one won't be going. Zhou Ying shook her head. Alright, then I'll go with Brother Zhou. Oh, right, bring Sun Hongliang and Chang Shun along too. Let them see the situation outside so that they can be mentally prepared. There are donkey carts in the village, right? Let's drive that as horse carriages are too eye-catching. Zhou Huaiming suggested. Afterwards, the group drove the donkey cart and sent Zhou Ying back to the village. Gu Qingrui changed into the most tattered clothes available, then took a bag of beef jerky and set off. Not long after they left, Gu Qingxi rushed over and said, Sister-in-law, is Brother Qingrui at home? Unfortunately, he just went out on an errand. You can tell me if you have anything. I don't think you can't help. I'm here to ask my brother for a pulse reading. You have to wait until tonight, then. By the way, are you done with the work in the fields? I'm almost done, and we still have some remaining sprouts. It's a pity that we planted them late this season, Gu Qingxi said as he pursed his lips. Chapter 352 Especially bad, those seeds won't run away, and it's just a matter of time before planting them. I'm going up the mountain to dig for some wild vegetables. Are you coming? Let's go. We can dig up some dandelions, chameleon plants, and so on to ease the food shortage. Wait a moment, 111 go find 2 small shovels. After Zhou Ying said that, she turned to the kitchen and took 2 small shovels that were usually used to transplant seedlings and 3 pieces of roasted white potatoes that were stored in her interspace warehouse. She brought Heir Zhuang and Gu Qingxi up the mountains once they were ready. However, the village children had dug everything in the outer area of the mountains, so they had to walk a little deeper. Even common plants like shepherd's purse, thistle, and dandelions are rare these days. They did find some mint, chameleon plant, Chinese plantain, gotu kola, and other herbs. They picked the bigger ones of these plants. On the way back, Zhou Ying took advantage of the time when no one was around and scattered many of the wild vegetables she had collected in her interspace around the mountains. She also sprinkled common medicinal herb seeds like purple perilla, indigo wood root, and prunella grass. This way, she could pick these herbs afterwards so they wouldn't have to worry about headaches and fever. After returning home, Zhou Ying took a handful of chameleon plants and a handful of mint. She gave the rest to Gu Qingxi and said, take these back. They might be of great use at some point. All right, sister-in-law. I'll return home now. Gu Qingxi nodded his head solemnly. He took the medicinal herbs and went home. After he left, Zhou Ying went to her interspace to boil a pot of water and make a cup of mint tea. The sky turned dark after she had had tea, so she turned and went to the kitchen to cook. However, in case Heartwarming and the others were coming over for dinner, she didn't cook up a feast. Instead, she cooked a plate of salted fish, a stewed dish of pickled vegetables and blood tofu, and finally, a plate of stewed beef with fried chives and eggs, the kind with more chives than actual eggs. Finally, she boiled a pot of black dumpling soup with a huge scoopful of white potato grains. Sure enough, Heartwarming and the others arrived just as she finished cooking. Heartwarming came out and asked them to stay for dinner. After the meal, Heartwarming and the other two returned to the manor. After Heartwarming finished cleaning up, she locked the door and returned. She found Guqingrui sitting at the table, drinking water without saying a word. She paused and went forward to ask, "Is the situation outside that bad?" "Yeah, what I saw was much more severe than Brother Zhou described. Many places rely on dirty flour paste to eat and drink their fill. Many of them were so hungry that they had bloated stomachs. The ground and trees had not a single piece of greenery left." That scene, Guqingrui shook his head and did not want to continue. "Our county still has mixed grain flour, but other places are way worse off than us. It can't be helped. I heard today that the north also suffered from a snowstorm. After the new year, there have already been several conflicts, and a war will break out at any time. The country is filled with internal and external troubles." "That's right. But how can we fight a war if we don't even have any rations? The feeling of being a slave to a fallen country is not going to be good." Heartwarming was silent after hearing this. Although she had never experienced it, she had watched many war films, so she knew the hardships of being a slave in a fallen country. It was a pity that they could only guard a treasure mountain and couldn't think of any way to provide more food to the masses. Heartwarming sat in Guqingrui's arms and said, "Don't overthink about it. We just need to live our lives well." "Yeah." Guqingrui rubbed his head against her forehead and stopped thinking about it. The problem was that he couldn't care about anything anyway. Thinking more would only cause trouble for himself. "By the way, is the birthday of this body of yours on the 18th of May? Chapter 353 Refugees Entering the Village 1. Heartwarming was stunned for a moment and nodded. "You'll be 18 after your birthday." After Guqingrui finished speaking, he chuckled and kissed her on the cheek. "I can finally have my feast." Heartwarming understood what he meant, so she pinched his waist and said, "Don't forget, you're only turning 19 in September. It'll be more than a year before you turn 20. Men and women are different. Men just need to pay more attention to the frequency and supplement more. I'm just afraid you're not developing well and will hurt your body when you give birth." Guqingrui chuckled. Heartwarming rolled her eyes at him. She stood up and said, "Your brain is always in the gutter." Although her words were full of disdain, she was happy internally. They had been husband and wife for many years in their previous lives, so they were used to doing it. It wasn't easy for him to endure and wait for her in their new lives for nearly 3 years. Seeing this, Guqingrui did not say anything else. Otherwise, he couldn't hold it in any longer. Therefore, he immediately got up, locked the door outside, and returned to the room. "Let's go into the interspace. There's a batch of medicinal herbs that need to be collected. There are also some chickens that need to be cleared up." Heartwarming nodded and went into her interspace with him to get busy. After dealing with the chickens, Heartwarming also butchered a batch of wild ducks. She took about 20 wild ducks and put them in a huge outdoor oven to be roasted, planning to make beer ducks. Heartwarming also took 2 butchered chickens and roasted them. After the two finished their work, they ate a roast duck and went to sleep. Heartwarming did not go to the manor the next day, as Guqingrui sent a roasted duck over. After that, the couple brought Zhuang and Guqingxi up the mountain to look for more medicinal herbs. Heartwarming returned with some beef jerky 3 days later and left for the military camp. Half a month later, when everyone was sleeping soundly on a particular night, they suddenly heard a series of blood-curdling screeches. Immediately, the entire village was startled awake. Did something come down from the mountains? Heartwarming asked after she got up. Gu Qingrui put on his clothes and replied, "It's hard to say, but it doesn't sound like anything good. Put on your clothes and wait at home. Don't go out," he added. "No, I think I'll go with you." After Heartwarming said this, she remembered the swords left in her interspace by assassins who tried to kill them. "One for each of us, just in case." She immediately took out 2 swords. "All right, but you have to listen to me." Gu Qingrui was afraid that she would be in danger if she stayed at home alone, so he nodded in agreement to her coming along. Then, the 2 of them locked the door and walked out with their knives. When they came out, many people gathered on the street, rushing to the village entrance with weapons. When they arrived at the street, they found it was not a wild beast from the mountain but a dozen refugees from unknown places. The families at the village entrance were all robbed by them, and they even took a few elderly and children as hostages. Now, they were confronting the villagers. The village chief stared at the people before him and demanded, "Who are you people? What are you trying to do? Hurry up and let them go. Do you know that this is against the law?" "Bullshit, what law? Whoever has the tougher fist is the law nowadays." The leader of the refugees looked at the village chief with disdain. "Don't move, or I can't guarantee that the people in my hands will stay alive." "What do you want, then?" the village chief asked in a bad mood. Chapter 364 Refugees Entering the Village, 2. It's simple. We heard your village is doing well, so we came here for food. The village chief squinted his eyes and sized up the dozen people before him. He noticed that each of them had a fierce look on their faces and that each of them held a different type of knife. He knew that they had come with ill intentions. He suppressed the anger in his heart and pointed to the bags of food beside them. "Didn't you guys already get what you wanted? Hurry up and leave. We won't pursue this matter." "No, village chief, one of the old men being held hostage immediately retorted. However, before he could finish his sentence, his neck was broken by the man who was holding him. That's right, he twisted it cleanly and neatly. If these people weren't military veterans, then they must be repeat offenders. The other hostages were so frightened that they immediately screamed. At the same time, the old man's family started to cry, but the refugees quickly silenced them. The villagers were also quite frightened. Many of them had never even injured anyone, let alone killed someone. Not many of them could calm down. "Just who are you people?" the village chief asked. At the same time, Heartwarming took out 2 large bags of tear-inducing powder from her inner space and handed them to Gu Qingrui. Gu Qingrui was stunned for a moment before he understood what she wanted to do. He took it and whispered softly, "Be careful, don't leave the crowd. These people are clearly outlaws." After speaking, he went to a corner and threw the tear-inducing powder over the refugees. Heartwarming immediately took out her slingshot and shot at the paper bags. The 2 paper bags instantly exploded, and the powder quickly scattered in all directions. The refugees had no idea what it was and looked up curiously. It was already too late when they realized something was wrong. One by one, they covered their faces and screamed. The hostages were stunned momentarily, but they quickly reacted and ran toward the villagers. When the village chief came to his senses, he immediately waved his hand for the villagers to raise their weapons and rush over. When the refugees saw this, they knew that things had gone bad. One of them immediately endured the pain and grabbed at a kid who was lagging behind. Heartwarming immediately hit his arm with the slingshot. The man screamed and immediately withdrew his hand. When the refugees saw that the situation had gone south, they turned around and wanted to run. The village chief immediately shouted, "Capture them, dead or alive." Everyone immediately chased after the refugees. However, even though the refugees were choking to the point where they could not open their eyes, they did not lose their fighting power. On the contrary, they were very irritable because they had been peppered. They raised the inferior, jagged knife in their hands and acted to kill. For a moment, the villagers didn't dare to continue their pursuit. Hit their arms. Gu Qingrui shouted as he walked over with a knife. He used the back of his knife to chop at the refugees' arms holding weapons. Although the back of the blade wouldn't kill, it was still very painful, so disabling one person's arm wasn't that hard. The villagers immediately understood what he meant by that. One by one, they roared and rushed forward. 3 or 4 villagers surrounded one refugee and beat them up. After a short while, they captured more than a dozen refugees. Gu Qingrui was afraid they would cause trouble, so he directly dislocated their legs, making them unable to move. The village chief finally heaved a sigh of relief and walked over to ask, "Just who are you people? Cut the crap, just kill me." The leader straightened his neck and declared. There was not a trace of unwillingness on his face. On the contrary, he was happy to see this happen. This caused the village chief to hesitate to make a decision. However, before he could decide, the children and grandchildren of the old man who had died earlier had already raised their sticks and swung them at the refugees' heads. Chapter 355 Refugees Entering the Village, 3. However, few dared to kill, so only one was knocked unconscious. The stick hit the others, but the refugees only felt a tinge. Tie them up and throw them into the ancestral hall. Well, hand them over to the village constable tomorrow, the village chief said with a sigh of relief. Village chief, does it mean my father's death will be in vain? The old man's son stood up and asked. So why don't you kill them and then get put in jail? The village chief asked. Enough. Throw them into the ancestral hole. They won't have a good ending anyway. The village chief turned around and ordered. However, after throwing the people into the ancestral hall, the village chief did not leave. Instead, he took a few people to hide behind the back window. He wanted to hear who they were or what their purpose was. Gu Qingrui was worried too. He asked Zhou for a pack of knockout powder and followed them. They eavesdropped on the conversation. After listening to the refugees' conversation, they were so scared that they started trembling. These people were refugees and had fled their homes since last spring. They had reached the south, but a flood occurred before settling down. Thus, they had to run back. However, they encountered a snowstorm. They had run out of food for a long time. At first, they had to eat tree bark and leaves, and when they couldn't stand the hunger anymore, they ate their offspring. They were now living on human flesh. They had come here because many refugees were heading toward Mount Qi, the tallest mountain here. Naturally, this group of cannibals followed suit, and at the same time, they wanted to get some food in advance. After all, no one could stand eating only meat, not to mention human flesh. No, someone muttered softly. These people can't be left alive. It's too dangerous. We'll have to ask for Constable Tian's opinion. We must keep a close eye on these people. If one of them can join their dislocated legs and escape, I'm afraid our village will never have a peaceful day ever. The village chief spoke in a low voice. That's easy. Gu Qingrui reassured them as he took out the knockout powder. He then blew it into the ancestral hall through the window. Ancestors, please don't blame me. I have no other choice. The village chief quickly kowtowed twice and muttered softly. Not only did the people in the ancestral hall know how to fix their bones, but they also knew that there would be people guarding them, so they deliberately explained their origins. First, these refugees wanted to scare the villagers so that it would be easier for them to escape later. The other reason was to buy time for them to recover as soon as possible. Unfortunately, they did not expect Gu Qingrui to be so despicable as to use knockout powder. They all fainted before they could even escape. After ensuring everyone in the house was unconscious, the village chief and his group walked in. They saw that all the ropes tying the refugees had been cut, and their feet were fixed. "It seems these people are quite capable," Gu Qingrui said. "Search them. Put away the blades and other things before tying them back up." Everyone immediately got to work when they heard this. Not only did they find a lot of small tools, but they also found iron wires, embroidery needles, picking keys, and so on. "It seems like these people aren't out for blood," the village chief said. "Indeed, these skills, especially lockpicking, can't be learned in a short time." Gu Qingrui nodded in agreement. "By the way, Qingrui, when will they wake up?" "I'm not sure, but let's make sure they sleep a little longer. 111 Just give them some more knockout powder." Chapter 356 Refugees entering the village. 4. After Gu Qingrui finished speaking, he gave them the remaining knockout powder and said, "This will keep them asleep probably until tomorrow night, or at least until noon. That's more than enough. I'll assign 2 people here to guard the place just in case, and the rest of you can go back to sleep. We still have to deal with a large number of refugees." The village chief replied. "Till stay," Qian Jiaxi and Qian Jiaxing offered simultaneously. "Okay, but be careful. If you really can't handle them, then," the village chief made a throat-slitting gesture. Although he didn't want to take any human lives, he wouldn't feel any pity for people like these who had committed unpardonable crimes. As long as they had a good reason, killing was acceptable. After that, he turned around and went home. On the other end, Gu Qingrui returned and told Zhou Ying about this group of cannibals. "The troubling times have come, and I'll go to the manor tomorrow to inform them." "Well, try not to go out if possible." "Yeah." Zhou Ying nodded, and she was feeling worried. A person who could be on the run for so long and manage to survive isn't going to someone kind. "We really have to be careful. Let's go to sleep. We still have things to do tomorrow." Gu Qingrui saw that she had fallen silent and knew she was frightened, so he could only go forward and hold her in his arms. Zhou Ying hugged him back and rubbed her head against his neck. After they had calmed down, they went to bed. However, not many families in the village could sleep soundly. Many had their eyes opened and waited until dawn. The following day, after they had their breakfast, Zhou Ying went into her inner space and quickly made 2 sacks of tear-inducing powder with a blender. She then drove the carriage to the manor. After arriving, she gathered everyone and told them what had happened in the village last night. Gu Qingrui added, "These people are scarier than wolves, so everyone must be very, very careful. I hope everyone can unite and do their best to protect our village. This is also to protect our lives." True that. At this point, there's no need to care about benevolence and morality. Everyone, use whatever means you have to protect yourself. But don't take the initiative to provoke them, or you'll only bring trouble upon yourself. Zhou Ying chimed in. "Don't worry, mistress. We understand. This village is the root of our survival, so we will definitely do our best to protect the village," Chang Shun said. The others immediately echoed his words. And their voices were especially loud. "All right then. Set up traps and the like that we use to guard against the wolves. Don't let anyone get close, kill anyone who doesn't listen to the warning," Gu Qingrui ordered. "Roger that, well set traps now." Chang Shun responded and led a group of long-term workers to reactivate the wolf traps. Sun Hongliang led the few others Manager Lu had left behind to activate the hidden trapdoors. Zhou Ying and Gu Qingrui returned to the courtyard and laid down some tear-inducing powder. Gu Qingrui asked Zhou Ying to take out explosives and a fire signal. Then, he used a small jar to make a few tear bombs and knockout powder bombs. Finally, he passed them to Sun Hongliang. These things are useful but dangerous. You must keep them well and use them at a critical time. I understand. I won't use it unless I have no other choice. Sun Hongliang wanted to say something else but stopped in the end. Gu Qingrui paused and asked, "You want the method of making these?" "Yes, the situation in the north is not looking good, so, do you still remember the fireworks during the Lantern Festival? It's actually the same principle, but the insides are different." Sun Hongliang's eyes lit up. "I understand. Master, you're brilliant." Chapter 357 Conscription. But if you want to spread these makings to others, you have to be careful. You can only tell Manager Lu verbally. Do you understand? Gu Qingrui solemnly instructed. If this thing were to be discovered and used by others, it would be another disaster for the Ming dynasty. Sun Hongliang looked at his serious expression and nodded firmly. "One understand." "Great, 111 leave this place to you. If there's a crisis, well, rush over as soon as this thing sounds." After Gu Qingrui finished speaking, he gave him a few more instructions. Only then did he and Zhou Ying go to find Uncle Nian and ask him to butcher a sheep every day or a cow every 2 days to ensure the workers' constant food supply. After that, he took a piece of beef brisket and some lard, went to Hu Chun's place to give the same news, and then returned to the village. After the village chief got up, he didn't eat breakfast and called 2 young men to follow him to the town to find Tian Jingzhong. He needed to tell him about the group of refugees as soon as possible. How are there such wicked people? Tian Jingzhong stood up in shock. That was my reaction exactly, but there really are some. The village chief answered with a bitter smile. How should we deal with these people? He asked. Should we kill them or, come with me to the county? We've just planted the sweet potatoes, and it's a huge problem for refugees to come now. We have to tell Magistrate Kong. All right, the village chief replied, and his stomach began to growl. You guys haven't had breakfast yet? Tian Jingzhong asked, stunned. I just wanted to get rid of those people as soon as possible, but you still have to take care of your body. Tian Jingzhong reminded the old man and asked the maidservant to bring them each a black vegetable bun and a bowl of mixed flour paste. After they finished eating, they took a carriage and rushed to the county government office. It just so happened that Manager Lu was there as well. He seemed to be talking about something, and his expression was grave. Seeing that the village chief and the constable were here, they were surprised. After both parties looked at each other, County Magistrate Kong asked, What happened? Tian Jingzhong looked at the village chief. The village chief nodded and told everyone everything that happened last night. As for how to deal with those people, please make the decision, Magistrate. County Magistrate Kong stayed silent for a long time after hearing this. Problems were coming one after another, and it was hard to be an official these days. How were they going to settle this many refugees? Would these refugees wait for death if they didn't settle them down? It would be troublesome if a riot happened. Ahem. Manager Lu coughed dryly to remind him that everyone was still waiting for his answer. This cough reminded him of something, and he answered, How about this? No matter what, they are human lives, and it would be a pity to kill them just like this. It just so happens that we received an imperial decree yesterday requesting conscription. Conscription. Conscription at this time. Tian Jingzhong exclaimed. There was no place of peace in the country currently. If they were to recruit soldiers again at this time, there was an 80% chance that there would be chaos. No wonder their expressions were so ugly when they came in. Yes, the northern borders are getting rowdier and rowdier. War is only a matter of time, so we must recruit soldiers. County Magistrate Kong affirmed, "We have to discuss this matter before announcing it," he said. "So, don't tell anyone for the time being." "Understood." Tian Jingzhong nodded. The village chief and the other two could only nod their heads, but their hearts were in a mess. Especially the village chief. Their village was still safe and sound until now because of the white potatoes and abundance of strong labor. These were the reasons why they could resist the outsiders invading their village. What would happen to their village if the strong labor were to be taken away? Chapter 358. Another issue, however, no matter what, they couldn't fight the imperial edict and could only listen to the command. After that, Manager Lu followed them back to the village. County Magistrate Kong sent Constable Zhang and the officers to return to the village with them. After taking the group of refugees away from the village, they were detained in prison. Conversely, Manager Lu went straight to the couple's house. The couple, who were about to head up the mountains to pick herbs, were surprised by his visit. Gu Qingrui immediately put down his basket and greeted him. "Uncle Lu, you're here. Come in and have a seat." When Zhou saw this, she greeted him and went to the kitchen to boil tea. "Are you guys going up the mountains?" Manager Lu asked as he followed Gu Qingrui into the house. "Yeah, we didn't have much to do at home, so we decided to head up the mountains to try our luck and see if we could pick some herbs. By the way, how many acres of land were planted with those seeds we gave?" "About 100 acres worth." County Magistrate Kong said he would like to thank you for solving one of his biggest worries. Manager Lu sat down as he replied to his question. Gu Qingrui looked at him and asked, "Could it be the refugees that are giving you a headache?" Manager Lu nodded and told him in a low voice about the conscription. "The refugees are a small matter. This is the big issue we are facing." Gu Qingrui nodded in understanding. People were struggling on the line between life and death, and conscription would undoubtedly add fuel to the fire. A single mistake could cause a riot, which was indeed a headache. "You won't be leaving this time, right?" he asked. "I'm not leaving, I have to guard the manor." Manager Lu nodded. Qingshui town had the most crops in the county, especially in Shanghe and Xiahe villages. He had to ensure the safety of these two villages. "That's great. We can be at ease with you around." Manager Lu smiled and didn't refute or disagree with his words. This was mutually beneficial to them. After all, the food that his people were eating now came from the manor, so there was no need to be overly polite. Soon, Zhou made a pot of mint tea for them and offered, "Uncle Lu, why don't you have lunch here? Brother Zhou brought some salted fish the last time he came here, and there's also beef at home. Let's have a good meal at noon." "Alright, don't mind if one do." Manager Lu nodded. "Lovely. You guys can continue chatting, and lunch will be done soon." Zhou then turned around and went back to the kitchen. As she steamed the salted fish, she also started heating the lard. She then stir-fried some chopped garlic and bok choy with the lard. After that, she cut a piece of beef and made a black pepper beef fillet. At last, Zhou mixed a serving of white sweet potato vine salad. Their carbohydrate staple was naturally steamed sweet potatoes. After Manager Lu ate his meal satisfactorily, he stood up and said, "You guys go ahead with your day. I have to go to the manor." "Alright, well, leave everything in the manor to you." Gu Qingrui stood up and said his goodbyes. The couple sent him off and went up the mountains. When Manager Lu returned to the manor, he saw that the manor had been fully guarded, so he went straight to Sun Hongliang. After knowing that Gu Qingrui had already given some orders, he nodded and said, "We have to take this seriously. You can discuss with Li Si and the others and try to work 4 shifts daily to ensure that we have enough physical strength just in case." "I understand, uncle. But since everyone is here, should we set up tents again? Otherwise, it'll be too crowded in the houses." "That's true. It isn't cold anymore, so let's rebuild the tents." "By the way, did General Zhou say anything?" Manager Liu asked. "No, he just asked us to guard the village and brush up on our martial arts." As Sun Hongliang replied, he got up and looked around. After ensuring no one was around, he whispered a few words in Manager Liu's ear. Chapter 359 Verification 1. Manager Liu's face was shocked as he asked, "Have you verified it?" "Not yet, but from his confident tone, I don't think it's fake." Sun Hongliang replied. "This is a huge matter. No one else knows about it, right?" "No, he told me in private and ordered me not to use it unless absolutely necessary. He also told me to only tell you verbally." "He's right. If this is true, it'll have a huge impact. Remember, don't tell anyone." Manager Liu's face darkened. "Even if it's used, we must remove all traces." "I understand. Also, give me a tear-inducing bomb tomorrow morning." 111 Go to the military camp. "Alright, I'll go set up the tents first." Sun Hongliang walked out after that. After sitting down and drinking a cup of water, Manager Liu went to take a look around the manor. When he saw that the sweet potatoes were growing well, he finally revealed a smile. After that, he walked around the grassland and sighed as he looked at the barren grassland with only some sweet potato seedlings. After that, he discussed it with Chang Shun and asked him to prepare more fertilizer to fertilize the grassland fields. He then transplanted more seedlings to the grassland together in preparation for the next rice planting. Finally, he instructed his subordinates to ensure he didn't miss anything. At dawn the next day, he took a tear-inducing bomb and rode to the military camp with 2 other people. They finally arrived on the morning of the 3rd day. The 3rd prince and Zhou Huaiming, who were practicing martial arts in the training ground, heard his arrival. They looked at each other and hurried to the main camp. They knew very well that Manager Liu wouldn't come here unless it was absolutely urgent. After they entered a room, they saw Manager Liu, whose eyes were bloodshot and who looked travel-worn. Seeing that he was about to bow, the 3rd prince directly said, "Forget it. Why are you in such a hurry to come over?" Manager Liu nodded and looked at the soldiers waiting in the room. The 3rd prince understood and waved his hand to send them out. Zhou Huaiming also realized that it was an important matter, so he went out and stood guard at the door. Manager Liu then approached the 3rd prince and told him about the tear-inducing bomb. He then told him about the many refugees coming to Dongyang. After the 3rd prince heard this, he looked at the small jar on the side and asked, "That's the bomb?" "Yes, that's it, but one haven't tested it yet, so I'm not sure what the specific effects are. I have a group of chickens on the mountain. Let's test it out on them." The 3rd prince stood up and decided. "Yes." After saying that, Manager Liu immediately picked up the jar and followed. The 3rd prince waved at Zhou Huaiming, and the 3 went up the mountain with a lighter. After sending the chicken farmer down for dinner, the 3 studied the bomb for a while, lit the fuse, and quickly threw it into the chicken pen. Before the jar could land on the ground, a loud bang was heard, and the tear-inducing powder scattered in all directions. The chickens in the chicken pen immediately flew everywhere. They would have escaped if it weren't for the net covering them. One by one, these chickens shrieked and flew around. Some of them would hit the walls and try to escape. More importantly, A few chickens had been killed by the explosion, and more had died because of the broken pieces of the jar flying everywhere. Even the 3 people standing outside were in a sorry state from the tear-inducing powder. One by one, they sneezed like there was no tomorrow and couldn't even straighten their backs. When the chicken farmer returned, he was stunned to see them in such a sorry state. He then looked at the chaotic chicken coop and was speechless. "The 3 of you are grown-ups, not children. How could you come to the chicken pen and cause such trouble?" Chapter 360 Verification 2. But soon, the farmer started sneezing and realized something was wrong. When the 3rd prince saw him return, he suppressed his discomfort and said, "Send the dead chicken inside to the kitchen. Well, make chicken soup for everyone at noon." After ordering that, he walked down the mountain, sneezing along the way. He looked embarrassed and had completely lost his usual stoic self. Seeing this, Heartwarming also followed. But before he left, he warned the chicken farmer, "You're not allowed to tell anyone about us setting off these firecrackers." "I understand." The chicken farmer sneezed and nodded. He sneezed again and again. After they left, the farmer quickly ran away and sneezed for a long time before it stopped. When he returned, the chickens in the chicken coop were still jumping up and down. There was still a pungent smell when he got close, so he immediately retreated to the side. After ensuring the smell had dissipated, he walked in and picked up the dead chickens. On the other side, the 3rd prince's group of 3 didn't go far before their sneezes stopped. He hid to the side and looked up to observe the chicken farmer. Only after 15 minutes, when they were certain the farmer wasn't going anywhere else, did the 3 turn around and return to the main camp. The 3rd prince confirmed that the power of this bomb was quite something else. Disregarding the effect of the tear-inducing powder, just the fragments flying randomly after the explosion were weapons with great lethality. It seemed that he really had to study it carefully. After that, he told Manager Lu, "This matter must be kept a secret." "I understand. I won't use it unless I have no other choice." Manager Lu nodded solemnly. By the time they got back, breakfast was ready. The 3 men quickly washed up and sat down to eat. The dishes were simple. Thick wild vegetable congee, scrambled eggs, and a white sweet potato vine salad serving. Although the dishes were simple, the amount was sufficient. "White sweet potatoes are growing here too?" asked Manager Lu in surprise. There were 300 pounds of white sweet potatoes left. "I saw that they had started to germinate, so I planted them. No matter how many sweet potatoes we harvest from these, it's still worth it." "Oh, right. How's the situation in Yunhe County?" the 3rd prince asked. Seeing this, Manager Lu explained the mass adoption of sweet potatoes in Yunhe County. "I'm just afraid the refugees will be too hungry and eat the seedlings. When you go back, take 2,000 soldiers with you. You must protect those seedlings. Executed them for rebellion if anyone dares to cause trouble." The 3rd prince replied expressionlessly. "White potatoes are the hope of the country," he continued. "Whoever dares to destroy it will be sentenced to death. There's no room for negotiation, so pass this on to County Magistrate Kong. In addition, weren't the refugees lacking food and clothing? When you return, tell County Magistrate Kong to recruit soldiers among the refugees first. This way, they can have a meal and solve the conscription problem. Remember to take note of their registration and monitor anyone suspicious." "I will remember this." Manager Lu nodded. After the meal, Manager Lu took a nap before having lunch. He then picked up 2,000 elite soldiers and rushed back to Yunhe County. At the same time, more refugees arrived in Qingshui town that afternoon. Tian Jingzhong looked at the group of refugees and got a headache. Only after understanding the situation did he realize these refugees were initially heading to Mount Qi. However, after they arrived, they heard about white potatoes here. Thus, everyone came to Qingshui town. After hearing this, Tian Jingzhong slammed the table angrily and said, "This is outrageous. There isn't much food left, so how are we going to live with more people coming?" He thought of Shanghe village, gathered all the officers and soldiers, and rushed there. He also sent someone to the county to report this. Chapter 361 Information County Magistrate Kong was stunned when he received the news. He had been trying to intercept the refugees here but didn't expect them to run over there. He had no choice but to call Bai Jingping over and have him bring another 100 soldiers. They had to protect the white potatoes at all costs. He also asked Constable Zhang to investigate the person who had sent the news to them. He felt that there was something fishy about this. On the other end, Gu Qingrui and Zhou had also seen the refugees while they were picking herbs from the mountain. They saw that the refugees had already settled down along the river. Of course, the Mother God Temple was filled with people again. Most started to pick wild vegetables and leaves on the mountain. They had even dug up all the small tree saplings to eat. When someone saw them, they even wanted to rob them, but the knife in Gu Shengruo's hand scared them off. When they got home, Gu Qingrui put down the basket and said, "You can handle the medicinal herbs at home. I'll go outside and find out what's going on. Alright, be careful. Also, if anyone dares to break in, just cut them down with your knives." Gu Qingrui rushed to the village chief's house after he finished speaking. However, he didn't walk far before he realized that most of the strong laborers in the village had already gathered at the village entrance. There were also many soldiers, so he immediately rushed over. He happened to hear the village chief distributing tasks. After learning that the patrols had resumed and even strengthened, they returned. With the help of the soldiers, the refugees wouldn't dare act rashly, at least for the time being. Otherwise, if something really happened, they would be in big trouble. On the other side, Constable Zhang had also found 2 informers. They were dressed up as refugees and blended into the crowd of refugees, quietly asking around for any gossip. After dinner, Bai Jingping personally led the soldiers over. He also gave the refugees some noodles and warned them that they could go up the mountain but couldn't simply deforest the place. They couldn't disturb the villagers or steal the vegetable seedlings in the fields. Otherwise, they would be directly enlisted into the army, regardless of whether they were male or female, old or young. After that, these soldiers set up a tent at the foot of the mountains. When the village chief saw this, he went from house to collect some white sweet potatoes, dried vegetables, and the like. He then sent them to Bai Jingping and said, "Lord Bai, this place is too shabby. You should stay in my house. Thank you for your kind intentions, Uncle Qian. It's more convenient to be here." Bai Jingping replied, shaking his head. With his status, living in the village chief's house was just an inconvenience, and he did not want to be served like a king every day. It would be uncomfortable. "Please take these then. It's a small token of our village's appreciation." After the village chief finished speaking, he pointed to the items in the 2 small carts. "Don't mind if I do. We have to cooperate more with each other from now on as well." Bai Jingping then beckoned for the soldiers to come forward and unload the items. "I understand. I'll come over every morning, afternoon, and evening." After the village chief finished handing them over the food, he informed Bai Jingping about the defense arrangements he had made before returning home. With the addition of Bai Jingping and his men, the village was guarded like an iron fortress. In addition, some miscellaneous tasks were assigned to the refugees, so the place was temporarily at peace. Gu Qingrui and Zhou did not go up the mountains again. Instead, they took the opportunity to take out some commonly used medicinal herbs from the inner space and let them dry. 3 days later, at night, Constable Zhang's informant number 1 finally got the information he wanted. There were indeed people who were encouraging the refugees to come over. He didn't expect that after settling down, the place would be so restless again. The new targets of these refugees were the cattle and sheep in Xiahe village. Unfortunately, he couldn't find the source. To prevent him from being imprisoned if the plan was leaked, he had to find his companion and ask, "Brother, do you have any information on your end? It's about the same as what you got." If we were to ask more, no one would be willing to say anything. The issue is that we can't ask any further. If we anger these people, we might be done for. Informant number 2 shook his head. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.